What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. I am Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84. I've got Derek Farnsworth, aka Notorious, alongside me as well, coming off a really interesting week field at the Bermuda Championship last week. But Noto, I think you had the winner as an outright pick last week, so congrats on that. And how you doing?
Yeah, thanks. It was nice to get that for sure. I was sweating Ben Griffin there at the end because the model loved him, and I didn't bet him at 120 to 1, so I was a little nervous heading into Sunday. And it looked like Dietrich was kind of going to backdoor his way into a playoff, but Power ended up birdieing 17. Had a hole to play with, so yeah, nice to get that one under the belt. And I don't know if you saw, but we had a 47 stroke difference between first and last place.
Oh, I did not calculate it. 47. That's a pretty big. Now we're gonna have to look and see. What are the what's the average? What's the usual dispersion between first and last? But that one will be difficult to top outside of a completely random, horrible showing. But all right, 47 strokes as the clubhouse leader. We had even though it was a weak field, pretty good calls last week. Patrick Rogers had the round of the day on Sunday, 6 under, pushed him up into the top 5. Good to see him playing well. I was joking around with, I think it was Hondizel tagging up Brian Gay, former champion, and he was in the mix there going into Sunday also. Faded a bit, but still a pretty good week for him if you played him as a punt. But any other takeaways from last week's kind of iffy field tournament there for you?
It was good to see Kevin Yu up there. We talked about him a little bit last week. Justin Lower continues to play well. I didn't have any of him, but yeah, he's just been crushing this swing season. And then I don't know if you saw, so the guy that took last, Kim Swan, he's like 67 years old. He just got in because he had ties to the course. What do you think of these guys that just get into these fields? It's so weird. Man,
I'm okay with it for that tournament. Like last year, they couldn't even fill that tournament with alternates.
I guess,
so,
yeah.
I guess if I was the first alternate that didn't end up getting in, I'm probably singing a different tune. But it doesn't bother me. I mean, with a tournament like that.
Yeah, it's just weird. You don't see like a arena designer getting a random at bat in a baseball game or something. It's interesting.
I think he was at least at one point was the club pro there.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Yeah.
But,
so I don't
maybe
know
the batting coach or something.
I saw one site had a prop bet on him versus John Daly for
easy
for better score, but Daly was like minus 500, I think.
Okay.
He's not minus 500 against too many people these days, but doggone it, I can't remember what book that was now. I saw it before the show or after the show last week, and I didn't favorite it, but can't find it now. Anyway, I think somebody might have tweeted it out over from the Action Network side. But yeah, okay, that explains the 47 stroke difference then, because was it 47 or was it 47 strokes between first and the last that made the cut?
No, just his 2 rounds. So
his 2 rounds. Okay.
28 over.
Rough couple days for him, but I'm sure he had a good time. Probably not great for whoever he was playing with, but nonetheless, another tournament down, and it was kind of a. It was a week where we cautioned against going super heavy. Obviously, there was no shot tracker. The weather was a concern, though they really didn't have any issues getting in the 4 rounds. So, was there even a delay at all?
I don't think so.
I think they might have moved the tee times up a little bit one of the days, but yeah, I don't think there was actually a delay at all during the play. Played a lot easier. The first 2 days, the course played really easy. The cut came in at 6 under par. Played a little bit more challenging over the weekend, so you saw some bigger scores there on the weekend, but just not a tournament that was mega exciting. From a DFS perspective, certainly a game changer for the guys that finished inside the top 10 there. Got a Seamus Power getting the win. He's not saying anything about it being an unexciting event, but good for him, and a week that we can pretty easily drift aside into the rearview mirror otherwise and move on to a new week. We've got the the Worldwide Technology at Mayakoba, I think it's called now. I I don't know. It's a tournament that's been around for quite a while. It's changed names a bunch. It was the OHL Classic for a while. That was a little easier to spit out than Worldwide Technology Championship. But we'll just call it Mayakoba. El Chameleon Golf Club is the host course as usual for this event. So we've got some data to go off of for this one. What are we looking at for a course layout and a tournament setup this week?
Yeah, a lot of course history to work with, although we don't have any shot link data. They've never driven the trucks down here, so hopefully they'll surprise us and we'll get some shot tracker this week, but I highly doubt it. Last 5 winners here, 23, 20, 22, and 19 under par. Another short par 71, a little bit longer than last week, but still short by PGA Tour standards. So I went back and looked through the last 5 leaderboards like I did last week and looked at the top 10 finishers. Here's how they rated out in terms of stats. So driving distance, the average was 32nd, accuracy 25th, green regulation 22nd, putts per green regulation 18th, and birdie or better 10th. So distance hasn't mattered all that much here, and that kind of goes with the past winners in Brendan Todd and Matt Kuchar. Around the green hasn't mattered all that much because the greens here are very big. They're very easy to hit, and scrambling success rate's pretty high, and that kind of matches with the past winner of Victor Hovland being one of the worst around the green on the PGA Tour. So for me, keep it in play off the tee, hit good irons, make putts, and that is pretty much all I am looking for this week. What about you?
Yeah, the guys that struggle to chip obviously don't have too much of an issue here, which is part of the reason why I'm sure Hovland likes it so much. Looking to three-peat. We've already had, by the way, a couple repeat winners this year. Max Homa won the Fortinet for the second straight year, and Rory won the CJ Cup, although it was at a different course. It'd be interesting to see if Hovland can give it a run at the three-peat. But yeah, ball striker, birdie maker type course. Guys that are going to give themselves plenty of birdie looks, maybe get hot with the putter, are the guys you want to target this week. I think I went back 9 years and the winning score had been at least 17 under, 16 or 17 under every time. So it's not going to be a course that's going to be mega challenging. You're going to see birdies. You're probably going to have to get 6 of 6 through the cut in order to have a good shot to finish near the top of the GPPs, with the scoring being relatively easy here this week. So we've got another 132 golfer field. Again, these are a little shorter than, maybe 144, 156 that you see sometimes in these full field events. We're getting into the time of year where daylight hours are pretty limited. It gets dark pretty early in most places, so it's just tougher to. They got a little bit more daylight down a little further south, but just tough to get a full 156 golfer field, and probably tough to fill that at this time in the calendar schedule. But ball strikers, birdie makers, don't hesitate to target some guys who can maybe just get hot with the flat stick, because everyone's probably going to have plenty of birdie looks this week. So anything else in general before we dig in?
This is the course with the famous bunker that has the cave in it. So that's kind of cool. And unique layout. You get some of the course that goes through the jungle. Some of it's out by the water. You don't want to be too errant off the tee because there are a lot of penalty strokes here. So, just keep it in play off the tee. And like you mentioned, ball strikers, birdie makers, good putters.
All right, let's go ahead and dig in. We actually have a healthy amount of golfers above 10K on DraftKings this week. We have 6. Scheffler, Hovland, Morikawa, Finau, Wise, and Billy Horschel. And right now we have, and I think Noto and I maybe have some slightly different takes this week, so this will be interesting. But 12% to 20% ownership projected on all of these guys. And, I'll start at the bottom of the range. I know you like him, and I know he's good on this course, but it's going to be a cold, cold day before I roster a 20% owned Billy Horschel, so that is not happening. I look forward to Billy Horschel ruining my week. I'm sure it's going to happen. But no Billy Horschel at 20% ownership for me. I know maybe when you first looked at it, you kind of assumed he might have some lower ownership based on the content I looked at this morning. But does that change your stance on how you want to handle the course horse, the non-Hovland course horse in Billy Horschel? And then we'll talk about these other guys.
Well, it's funny. I was ready to come on here and say, be ready for a Billy Horschel win. Prep yourselves. It's going to happen this week. I don't know why. I know that, but it's going to happen. So I can't fade the winner, even if he's going to be 20% owned. And I do think that number is going to come down. So many big names right above him. I just have a hard time seeing him be more than Wise, more than Hovland, more than Finau. So
I don't
I'll wait
know.
and
People
see,
get
I
sucked
guess.
in by that course history.
I know, but Hovland's won here twice. Wise has been great here. Scheffler's been good here. Everyone up here except for Morikawa has good course history.
Well, in any case, I don't like Horschel, so I'm using that as an excuse not to play him. I'm sure he will luck box his way into some chip ins and some 40-foot putts, and it's just going to happen. But,
He's
you know,
playing well.
he is. I no, hey, I'm gonna take the fall so that everyone else can enjoy the winnings. But yeah, I think Morikawa is somewhat interesting, but hard to go away from Hovland. Obviously, he's won here 2 years in a row. His form's gotten a little better. I don't know. I just like these other guys overall in terms of talent perspective. I probably will play all of the others before I play Horschel, but again, I'm fully prepared. Like you said, I'm prepared for it to doom me. So we'll go in knowing that that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, one other thing we should mention. Last week we talked about the balanced approach just seemed better because the 10K guys weren't normally 10K guys. There was a lot of golfers that we didn't love. Obviously, Seamus Power ended up playing well, but he was really the only one, up there that played great. This week we have a ton of star power up there. So I am definitely prioritizing stars and scrubs myself. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a week. There's enough value down in the 7K range, and these top guys, once we get down in the 9Ks, there is a pretty distinct drop off in talent level between, say, the top 6 or 7, and then the next tier. So that the stars and scrubs build maybe you can get 2 of these guys maybe above 10K does seem to work this week, and the original kind of lineups I've messed around with, I think that does have more appeal on a lineup building perspective than the balanced approach. If you're going deep, 20, 30, 40 entries in some GPPs, sure, you can do some balanced lineups. But single entry, cash games, things of that nature, I do think that maybe going with 2 of these 10K plus guys makes some sense. If you're into Horschel and Finau together, I mean, if you put Finau and Horschel together in a lineup, not saying that it has to be those 2 guys. Obviously, I'm not playing Horschel, but if you put Finau and Horschel together, you still have 7,400 on average for your last 4 spots, which is definitely doable this week. And so that's why I think that kind of build does make sense. So Noto likes Horschel a lot. I am off of him, fully understanding that there's some bias in there. But what are your thoughts on, say, if you had to pick a couple other favorites in this top tier?
So definitely going back to Victor Hovland. He's been playing much better recently. He's had a lot of quality finishes worldwide, and he's been playing a lot of golf this fall. So I do like that. Obviously, this course suits him well with back-to-back wins. I don't know. I don't think we have to worry about the media obligations and all that. We've seen a couple
Yeah, he
guys
did
win.
that last year and
Yeah,
did just fine.
we've seen a couple guys win that tournament 3 years in a row. So maybe he can add his name to that list. I also like Aaron Wise. He's been a great ball striker for years and years. And last year, well, I guess this year, last season, he turned into a great putter. The only weakness he has is around the green, and that's negated here. He has a good course history, 3 top 15s in his last 4 years. So those would be my 3 that I like, but certainly no issue with Finau. I just don't have a strong take on Scheffler right now. He's not been putting well.
Yeah.
Anytime he makes a big run, he kind of just makes a big number, and I don't want to pay 11.4 for him at the moment.
No, I kind of am with you on that. I think just that salary and the fact that there's so many other options. If you take away that stretch where he was just unbeatable, very, I don't know if pedestrian is the right word. That maybe is a little too harsh. Still, if you look at his stats, he's still really solid, but not necessarily the guy that's obviously the top class of a field. With at least some strong names like we've got here this week. Now, if it was last week, a little bit different, but I think you've got enough other players here that you can easily pivot down to that are a little bit cheaper. Helps to fit in maybe a second top end guy. He's still second in the field in ball striking last 36 rounds, but Finau is first. I'd probably play him over him. Obviously, Hovland with the course history. Wise, you mentioned putting it better. A lot better, and then everyone can be left to their own devices as to how they want to approach Horschel, but interesting options in the 10K and above range, and nobody that's just a glaring you can't play this guy or you have to play this guy because there's so many options that's why the ownership I think is getting spread around a little bit. So, and then as I mentioned, clearly a step ahead of this next group. Rookies do tend to struggle here a little bit. So you got Montgomery in 9,600. I'm largely off the rookies this week, but I do think Montgomery is kind of, he's in a class of his own. I mean, his 26 PGA Tour rounds, he's fourth off the tee, second in short game, first in putting. So he is absolutely a guy that's been getting hot with the putter, full of confidence. Fantastic, all four of his starts here during the fall swing. So Montgomery is the one rookie I'll probably look at this week, and I do like him in GPPs. But other than that, I'll be a little cautious with the rookies here. But you got Hoagie and McNeely and last week's winner and Power and then Jason Day, who's been playing better, but still a step down from what we see with the 10Ks. So what are your thoughts on the 9K range here?
I do agree with you on the first timers tend to struggle here a little bit. I mean, we even saw Hovland miss the cut here in his first two tries before winning twice. So I'm right there with you. But Taylor Montgomery, just a cheat code on the greens. In his last four starts, plus 11, plus 6, plus 5, plus 5 strokes putting. If you look at his numbers, he's played 18 events since the start of February. A lot of those on the Korn Ferry Tour. 14 top 15 finishes. It's just wild, the run that he's been on. So I might have to go with a little bit of him in tournaments. Won't be going back to Seamus Power. Won't be paying 9,200 for Jason Day, even though I always root for him. I do like Tom Hoagie quite a bit. So he's a guy that's been in really good form. Top 15 in 5 straight events. He's played here a bunch. If you look at his numbers, approach 18, plus 18 over the last 5 events. And on the greens, he's gained 13 strokes putting in his last 5 events. So a guy that's getting hot at the perfect time. And then at the very bottom of the range, I like Brendan Todd. He's going to be in the fairway. He's going to putt it well. And the last time we saw him, he gained 7 strokes on approach. So I just need a decent round, decent 4 rounds from him with the irons. And I think he's going to have a good week.
Yeah, I do like him this week as well in first, 8th, and 11th here the last 3 years. The other guy you mentioned earlier, guys that like Wise that have turned into good putters. Emiliano Grillo has turned into an average putter, which is better than dead last in putting. And I've kind of faded him for this whole, I don't know, it's probably a year now, just waiting for that putter to just regress. And I think I finally come to the realization that I probably just need to accept that he's okay. He's not great, not top, not Montgomery-like, but he's good enough given the rest of his game with the putter. And we know he's going to give himself plenty of birdie looks. Did miss the cut here last year, but before that, 8th, 41st, 15th, and 9th. So 3 top 15s the prior 4 years. Pretty good course history there. He'll be fairly popular, but just time for me, I think, to at least start buying in a little bit. Like him in GPPs. I think your Todd call is pretty spot on as well. I like Montgomery. The rest of the range is probably a hit or miss for me. McNeely has pretty good course history too, but the stats these days just aren't popping much with him. His ball striking has been terrible, so I think I'm off of McNeely this week. Anything else on the 9Ks?
I like the Grillo call. I did bet him outright this week. And I was talking with PJ Splits about his putting. He's a guy that used to be on the show with us. And he was saying that he switched over to the claw grip right around the time he started gaining all these strokes putting. So maybe there is something sticky to the putting in his new grip.
There you go. It certainly hasn't hurt for sure. So, it's good to see him at least getting more consistent on the greens. Greg in the YouTube chat wants to know, and if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. We do appreciate that. We know a lot of people might watch us on playback. Hit the thumbs up button then too if you're watching us on playback. We are doing our live stream just a little bit earlier this week. I had to flip around our schedule a little bit with some NFL shows, so no worries though. You can always watch this anytime up until Golf Locks on Thursday morning. But Greg in the YouTube chat wants to know how you can play Todd over your boy Brian Harman. And Noto's got a little thing for Brendan Todd too. He's been pretty consistent liking Todd over the last year or so. So I can see that being kind of a dead heat. But maybe you can just play them both, right? Is that the answer?
Yeah, you can play both. The model says to play Harman. My heart says to play Todd. The thing for me, Harman just hasn't been very good here. I don't know what it's been. He's made 5 of 7 cuts, but his best finish is a T30. So Yeah, I don't know. I like Harmon anytime you get him on a shorter course, but I'm going with the course history truther in Brendan Todd.
All right. Yeah, I don't have a strong take on Harmon either. I think he's fine. Doesn't really fit and this is kind of the deal with this next range, right? These guys don't fit the stars and scrubs build as easily as kind of some of the top end guys do. And well, and actually, while we're doing this, let me maybe Devin, our producer, will let me take. I'll take over the screen share and kind of go show you guys what I'm talking about here as we go. All right, so if I go to a sample, if we just go to do a balanced build this week, you could go with somebody like Harmon, Dietrich, Henley, Kuchar, and you got 79.50 for your last two spots. But your most expensive guy in a balanced build is Brian Harmon or Dietrich in the 8Ks. So those four golfers, Harmon, Dietrich, Henley, Kuchar, leave you with 79.50 for your last two spots, which I don't know, just doesn't seem all that appealing. And instead, if you start with say Finau and Wise, and then you go down to a couple of the 7K guys that maybe we like, and we'll talk about some of them we like here in a little bit. But say I throw two $7,500 guys in there, I've got 7,200 for my last two spots, and you're basically at the same type of golfer. And instead of starting with Brian Harmon and Dietrich, you're starting with Tony Finau and Aaron Wise. So it just goes to show that the more popular approach this week is going to be that stars and scrubs build. And what that does is it leaves this 8K range in kind of a no man's land, to where it's not as though I dislike a lot of these guys. I just don't like the way they fit into builds quite as much. Do you have any strong leans on these 8K players? I mean, I'm finding that I might only have, one or two of them in my player pool.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm not itching to get any of these guys into my lineups. I like Dietrich for my guy above 8,500. I think he's interesting. He's been playing really well. Obviously, nearly won last week. And then at the very bottom, I do like Kuchar quite a bit. I think he's one of the safer options on the board. For the longest time, I've kind of called his finishes smoke and mirrors, just because the last couple of years his ball striking has been so bad. But he's gained 10 strokes ball striking in his last two events in the swing season, and he loves this place. First, 14th, 22nd here over the last 4 years. So I do like Kuchar. I think you can definitely fit him in builds pretty easily. But everyone else, the model likes Henley. I don't love Henley. That's about it for me.
Yeah, I think KH Lee is okay, but he's also going to be the most popular of the group. I think Henley's okay, but nobody that I'm rushing out to roster from this tier. And I don't feel like super concerned about, okay, I think this guy is going to kill me because I didn't play him. I think you go down in the 7Ks, fill out those stars and scrubs builds a little bit better, and then that's kind of where you land. If you maybe you fit one of these guys in here, or maybe this build becomes super contrarian, but just don't see as much win equity with this group compared to what we see in the top of the field. So we've got some ownership on Putnam as well. Looks like he grades out okay in our projections. But anything else on these guys that we need to pass along?
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's go ahead and move down into the 7Ks. I was kind of surprised to see pretty low ownership on Patrick Rogers. I don't often love targeting Rogers on courses that take the driver out of your hands a little bit, because that sometimes is his biggest weapon, but it also makes him a little inconsistent. But he tends to play well here. He's got 3 top 20s on his resume here, and he has shown progressively better results as the fall swing has gone along, including that sparkling Sunday round last week. And I always like the guy that has a sparkling Sunday round heading into the new week with some confidence, some energy, and in a place where he's played fairly well in the past at times. So I do like Rogers at 10% ownership in GPPs. You are sometimes the Patrick Rogers whisperer, so your thoughts on him, and then you can kind of go down into the 7Ks a little bit.
I feel like I parted ways with Rogers. I don't know what happened. I just haven't been there for his good finishes, so maybe it's a me issue, not a Rogers issue. But yeah, he's playing great, so no issue with that one. Aaron Rye, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like 10K last week, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
And
But that
he
was a
made
more an indictment of last week than it is.
yeah, but I mean like Sheamus was up there and he's like 9,400, and a couple other guys that were expensive. Dietrich was up there and he's high eights. So I think we're getting a nice discount on Aaron Rye. I don't think it's a bad course fit for him by any means. He's really good on approach. He's good with his putter. Finished T15 here last year, so I'll go back to him. And his T54, it wasn't great, but he got off to a really slow start, battled back to make the cut. So I do like him. And tournament play, I like Harris English quite a bit. He has been all over the map the last couple of years. He's been dealing with a bunch of injuries, but last two events, he's gained on approach and he's gained with the putter. And he's won here before. He finished fifth here in 2019, fifth here in 2020. And yeah, I remember rostering him in the Drive Street days at this event. And yeah, 2013 is when he won. So been playing DFS for far too long.
We're old. We're old.
Yeah.
That's just dated us. We've been doing this far too long. But yeah, he's a grizzled veteran at this point, just like we are with DFS. So these are the guys I think that could be difference makers in a GPP this week. You get one of these guys that finishes 6th, they're 8th, they're top 10, and the ownership kind of spread out. Those can be the guys that help differentiate your lineups. We've seen Robbie Shelton has shown some life. Justin Lower has been playing really well on the greens, and again, hot putter, 4 for 4 making the cut, I believe, in the fall swing. He's got a little bit more ownership than I expected, but a guy that I think has some potential at that salary. You mentioned Rye with a relative, what seems like a discounted price compared to some of the others from last week. Lee Hodges, JT Post, and Adam Long. Like, we've seen these guys post solid finishes. And they're all more expensive than Justin Rose, who's back this week, and all the way down to 7,300. So will be interesting to see how he plays. But, Poston, Long, Robbie Shelton, Rose, Grayson Sig, we've got some ownership on. You got a favorite or two out of this kind of mid 7K range?
Yeah, a lot of interesting names. I think Rose, probably for tournaments, probably has more upside than the guys around him, probably has a lower floor as well. So I wouldn't use him in a cash game build. But you mentioned Adam Long, second, third, and 22nd here the last 3 years. He tends to play the same course as well each year. And then this feels like a perfect Chris Kirk course. He's a good total driver of the ball, really good short game. He just hasn't been great here, but he has made his last 4 cuts. So I'll play a little bit of Kirk. And then I like Svensson as well. Can get really hot with the irons. He's 7,100. Doesn't look like ownership's going to be there. At 4%, I think he's interesting.
Yeah, I'm always kind of a Svensson stan, if you will. And at 7,100, I am on board with that call this week as well. Kevin Streelman's a guy that's shown some better results lately. You mentioned Kirk. I mean, all these guys are really at 5%. Will Gordon has made all 4 of his cuts on the fall swing. Gordon's had kind of a reputation for being a volatile guy, but he's got like 4 finishes between like 30th and 50th on the fall swing. So at least he's getting paychecks, but maybe developing a little bit of that consistency. And he's 7K, talented guy. I don't mind going to him. If you're looking for stats, over the last, so a couple of the guys that I mentioned in here, over the last 36 rounds, Svensson is 10th in this field on approach. Streelman is 20th. Austin Smotherman is 38th and 21st off the tee, 26th in ball striking. His putter has just been terrible. Gordon is 27th off the tee, 45th in ball striking. So those are some guys at least that grade out above average statistically. If you're looking at the approach game, some of them a little bit hit or miss with the short game, but I mean, you're not going to find somebody at this range like 7,200 and below that checks all the boxes. The one guy maybe that has been playing well and might check most of those boxes is Ben Griffin, who you mentioned you were kind of sweating out a little bit last week, but I don't know if some of this is recency bias or if just at 6,800, given the way he's been playing, I mean, that feels a bit cheap.
Yeah, it feels really cheap. I mean, just look at his numbers. Granted, very small sample size, but he's been on fire with the irons. He gained over 6 at the Sanderson, gained 3 at the Shriners, gained 4 at the Wyndham. Last week he was third. We don't have shot link data, but I would have to imagine he gained on approach. He just fell apart there on the back. That happens a lot to guys that get into contention for the first time.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to Griffin. Don't mind that. I'll go back to Kevin Yu, who played well last week, also finished in the tie for third. Another guy that's been in really good form, some good stats as well. And then after that, I don't mind going back to Ben Taylor. Played him a little bit last week. He's only 6,400. He's played here twice, which is a feather in his cap. If we do want guys that have seen this course before, Callum Tarrant, after burning a lot of the field last week, he was in the mid 8s. Now he's only 6,700. Don't mind going back to that. And Ryan Palmer rates out well for me, but
we haven't heard from him in a long time.
Long time. I don't know. Maybe just the overall talent in the long term is helping him out. But yeah, T27 here last year.
I mean, it just feels like he has disappeared. I can't remember the last time. I got to go look at his profile and see. I just don't remember the last time we even talked about him. 45th at the CJ Cup, missed the cut at the Shriners. Yeah, I mean, his results aren't horrible. He is 20th at the St. Jude, 31st at the 3M, 16th at the Scottish Open. So it's not like I expected, given the fact that we haven't talked about him that much, that he'd have like 7 missed cuts in a row or something like that. But
although our general rule with Palmer is to not play him on courses with water.
That's the only time we bring him up. Maybe that's why we haven't seen a lot of water courses lately. But yeah, you want to cut line sweat. There you go. At least he's 6,900 as opposed to 8K or something like that. But I don't mind sprinkling some of these guys that potentially showcase some upside. Looks like our projections, just in terms of point per dollar projections, like David Lipsky a good bit. Hondizel, I made fun of him for tagging Brian Gay last week, and he got it right. So looks like he's got Tyler Duncan tagged as the punt du jour this week. 5 of 5 making the cut at this event. So if you want to go with the siding with Hondizel, he's had some good calls lately. We've got Tyler Duncan at 6,500. Not a whole lot of under 7K, but plenty of options in that 7K range and kind of right below it. Somebody like CT Pan or something like that doesn't grade out horribly either. So anybody else in particular that you're looking at or that the model likes as a total punt this week?
Not really. Greg in the chat said he can't play Jaeger this week, so he's got to play EVR. I certainly understand that. I've had a Jaeger problem lately. And
we need to call AA for you?
Yeah, exactly. It hasn't worked out well, and that's kind of funny. Didn't even try to do that, but so maybe we go to EVR. He's another one of those guys that loves to burn your lineups.
His stats, when I was scrolling through the stats, let's see, those 36 round stats I had pulled up, 8th in this field in strokes gained approach and 114th in short game. So it's mainly around the green has been terrible. So if you're subscribing to That Not Mattering, maybe give him a little bump.
There we go. Although he rates out as one of the worst value plays in the model, so maybe not.
Scrap that then. Well, it's an interesting week. I think we've got ownership kind of spread around. Nobody that's mega chalk. Like right now, if we sort the field by projected ownership, we don't have anybody above 21%. But we've got, let's see, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, about 30 guys in double digits, but nobody over 21%. So it could be a nice week where I don't think there's going to be, glaring chalk of this guy's going to be 50%, this guy's going to be 60%, 40%, even in smaller field stuff. I think you're going to see a pretty good dispersion of ownership this week. So really a week where you can kind of play the guys you like and then build your rosters from there. For me, though, the one chalk guy that I will fade out of principle is Horschel, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show. We'll see if Hovland can go for a three-peat. at this tournament. And again, probably no shot tracker data, probably horrible TV coverage, but I ranted about that last week, so I got to wait a few weeks before I go on about that again. Anything else from your side before we get out of here?
Not really. We're winding down toward the end of the year, so a couple more events. We got 3 more after this, and then a nice little break.
It's either 3 or 2, but I will let you know in about 20 seconds here as I have the schedule pulled up. So yes, it is Houston Open next week, and then the RSM Classic, and then the winter break, unless you want to queue up the Hero World Challenge and count that as an event, but that is kind of a 18 golfer field there, a little exhibition in December. But Houston Open, RSM Classic, the next 2 weeks will round us out before the winter break. And so we'll be back next week to talk about the Houston Open. We'll see what kind of field we get for that event. And we'll have a new champion. So for the Houston Open, because we'll have a new champion for the next 2 events, because the 2 defending champions of the next 2 events have both moved to the Live Tour. So we'll see how that goes. No defending champions the next couple of weeks, guaranteed. Put it in the book. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll go ahead and get out of here. Thanks to Noto for hosting alongside me. Thanks to Devin for producing hard behind the scenes for us. I am Justin. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, and good luck with your golf lineups. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out, and have a great week, everyone. Take care.